Evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Hello, Melissa.
Hi, Jackie. How are you today?
Yeah, okay. Very well, thank you. Isn't it wonderful how we come to meet? Well, so I did a video yesterday on my page, Inspirations PLG on Facebook, and just explained the synchronicity of how we met. But I will just explain it because you might not have seen this, everyone that's here tonight. It was in April. I was doing a Akashic Records course, and at the end of it, when that finished, Renee, who I did the course with, she said, oh, you're good to go now, you can read people's Akashic Records. But I didn't feel confident enough, so I looked up, and the book behind Melissa, Akashic Records, took my eye, and so I ordered that book. And so when I went to bed early this night that it came, and I was reading through, I missed the first page completely, and then I went to introduction, not introduction, the one before that, the thank yous, and just flicked through those, and the last one on there, it said, and to my buddy and partner in all things spiritual, Diane Hayworth. You have guided me, kicked my ass, but most of all made me laugh so hard I almost peed my pants several times. You are my sounding board, my best friend. Thanks for being there through all the phone calls about this book. And I thought, oh, Diane Hayworth, I've got a good friend in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia, like the only person probably, apart from my cousin in California. I don't know anyone else in America personally. But I do know Diane because she's been and give this talk for us in Southampton when she was over for Robert Holding. And that's how I met Diane, through Robert Holding. So I messaged Diane because I hadn't seen that first bit in the book, and said, do you know Melissa Feick? Because I've just read this thing and it says Diane Hayworth. And she said, I sure do.
That's a good accent.
Yeah, she said, I'm on a Zoom call with her now. And then the next message that came through was your email. And so I emailed you straight away to see if you'd do a talk, because Diane said you'd be a great person. Well, I knew that anyway, yeah, that you'd be a great person for a talk. And came back and said the angels must have had a hand in that, because it absolutely did. Yeah, how wonderful. So thank you, Melissa.
Thank you so much, Jackie, for having me here. And yeah, that is such a beautiful story because it just shows you how interconnected we really are.
Yeah.
And that you actually open that page. A lot of people don't read through the thank yous at all or even look at them.
Yeah.
So that you actually opened to that page and saw Diane's name. It all is spirit working with us. And I think as a collective consciousness as well, we connect and communicate in ways that we're so unaware of.
Absolutely. And reading bits of your book today, just as a reminder, I just went through some that really resonate. And it just made, you said about, you vibrate, it's your vibration. I know we all know this, but your vibration, if you're vibrating with, lower energies, that's what you attract. Or if you believe, and if you're on a love vibration, with lovely people that are full of love, and so that's what you attract as well. So yeah, so what Melissa's talking about tonight: transcend lower patterns of behavior, learn how to use karmic entanglement to heal in the Akashic records of the quantum field. Yeah, so I just made a few notes. Our thoughts match what we attract. If we think lack, we attract lack. If we think love, we attract love. If we think health, we attract love, and so on. So yeah, if you wanted to talk a bit about how the book came to being, or a bit about you actually, Melissa, if you would.
Sure. So I'm a human like the rest of us. So there's nothing special about me or really anyone in the world, right? But my passion has always been humans. I have a fascination with consciousness, with people. I when I was a young girl, I knew I wanted to be a psychologist, or that's what I thought I wanted to do. So I went to college and got a psychology degree. And then I realized how that just didn't, there was something amiss in that. And then I found spirituality very early in my youth. So I was doing astrology charts when I was, I literally learned how to do astrology charts when I was in college. And I had this fascination. And there wasn't a lot back in the, late 80s, early 90s. There wasn't a lot around, but I found a bookstore and I just started to devour anything I could. I started teaching in the mid to late 90s. So I've been a teacher for many years, a healer, ran the gamut. Been there, done that, almost everything. And so really my passion is to help people ascend. So I'm really into the ascension. So everything that I do has the underlying energy of raising our frequency and moving into a higher consciousness. And when I was to talk about the book quite a few years ago, I think it was probably 5 or 6 years ago at this point, I got a full download of this book. And I was shown how the Akashic Records on the quantum field is a more succinct way for us to start working in a bigger picture way, working on our own issues. So what do I mean by issues? I mean traumas, lower energies, angers, resentments, old patterns. And those patterns, when I was shown, so I was completely downloaded with this. But that download, what it showed me is that we have these overall patterns. So think about it like an umbrella, and everything underneath it is all the things, all the belief systems, all the stuck feelings, all the old traumas or issues, everything that we've inherited from our family line, everything that's in our Akashic records. It can run under very specific patterns. And most humans have similar patterns. So the patterns would be patterns of abuse, patterns of abandonment, patterns of victimization, patterns of depression or sadness. So all of these things are underneath. And what they showed me is that we are moving from a time of one lifetime after one lifetime after one lifetime into looking at what's the pattern that can be transcended quicker. And so when I heard all this, I was kind of like, well, I love the Akashic Records, but it's not really what I'm interested in anymore, because I used to do that kind of thing, read records and all that, but I kind of moved away from that. And they were like, no, this is a huge healing opportunity. And I said, okay, because Spirit knows that I'll just pretty much follow their lead. And I just followed through. So I started teaching it to flesh out the material, and I started writing everything down that I could. So that's basically how it came to me.
Wow, that's wonderful. Honestly, I love it. Love anything about the Akashic Records. It's just so interesting, isn't it?
Yes.
So I know you talk about our focus, and like, especially at the moment, the focus and the vision. Have I written vision there? Division. Oh yeah, the division. So are we focusing on what we want, or are we focusing on division? Which is, again,
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a thing at the moment for definite. Certainly in my so what I did when I was reading that, I had the van MOT today, and I was sat there reading this while that was being MOT'd, and my son's getting married in July. And, yesterday we had this announcement. So I had a birthday party booked that's now cancelled, and really hoping that the wedding wouldn't be cancelled. And I was reading this particular bit in the book that said about being triggered on the 3D level. And as I read that, this ting, I had the message come through, text from my future daughter-in-law to say the wedding's cancelled. And I had just read being triggered in the 3D of what's going on, because I was really, really hopeful that that would not have happened, because he said that with weddings, you couldn't, you could carry on, you could have more than, but because it's not a very big venue, you can still only have 6 at a table. You're not allowed to sing, not allowed to have a DJ, not allowed to dance, you know, so it's just not going to be what they wanted it to be. So of course they've cancelled it. And so I had that conundrum of being triggered into the 3D part of that and staying on the 5D level, or whatever you say, you know, the ascension path. That was a perfect, to be reading that as that came through.
I love that.
Yeah, it was. So yeah, I just thought, well, there's a good reason for it. There's always a good reason. And when you look back after, you always see what the blessing within it is. But you don't see it right at the time, do you?
No, no. Well, because we live in a place of duality.
Yeah.
And the 3D realm is duality. So everything is in this break apart of, you know, good, bad, right, wrong, up, down, right? It's that duality experience. And when you are living just from the awareness that there's always this dichotomy and split, then we always feel separate from everything in our lives. And we get triggered by the things that aren't in the realm that we want them to be. And one thing I've recognized is that even in our own psyche, with all the people I've worked with through the years, what I see is that they are caught up in the need to control their environment and to see everything from this right and wrong experience. But once you hit the higher frequency, there is no right and wrong. And it's hard for us to fathom that, because we think, well, that person is wrong because they believe that thing. But we don't know really what they came here to experience or what they're here to show us. So we don't really know, but we are assuming, because it's our ego that's making that assumption that this is wrong and that's right. And we fight for this thing we call right. But in reality, we don't even know if that is right. Maybe there's a different plan that we're not aware of. And that's what causes our suffering, is all of those things, especially that separation or that dichotomy. And that suffering that we have within can be so difficult for us as humans. And then we try to figure out a way to not suffer. So then we get more caught up. So it's really about the ego's identity and holding on to that identity, holding on to that dichotomy of right and wrong, good, bad. You know, that duality just messes with us. So that's why I think that I was downloaded with this specific information. And I don't think that it's the end all or that it's the only thing, but I find that when people really dive in and look at this on a deeper level, they get it and they're like, wait a minute, I do have this pattern of abuse. And I am using that as my excuse to not fill in the blank, not have a relationship, or not get the job that I want, or go out and do spiritual work, or whatever it is. And they're like, okay, you know what? I don't have to look at one lifetime after another lifetime, because we've all had abuse. And abuse is mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, and sexual. And spiritual abuse is any sort of things, basically like you're a sinner or anything that controls you under the spiritual umbrella. Cults also, I've worked with quite a few people who have been in cults, same thing, they experience spiritual abuse, but that causes suffering, which causes us to reincarnate over and over and over again. So in order to transcend that suffering, in the human realm, we need to release or let go of these overall patterns that sit in the Akashic Records in the quantum field.
Absolutely. Oh, that's amazing. So how would you live your life knowing what you know now? How often would you say you're in the quantum field of above it, you know, above the, because what the video that I just watched with you was marvelous, because it just said about, you know, in the 40s, when we went into the 50s, the people still living in the 40s were trying to drag us back to the 40s. When we went to the 60s, people were trying to keep us in the 50s. And that's what happens, isn't it? So yeah, how can you transcend that on a pretty daily level, or, you know, being human as well?
Yeah, there is the question of our existence right there. Like, how do we transcend all of this? And of course, shadow work is a good way to do that. And the work that I do, and you can do this from the book. So all the information's already in the book. But basically, you're looking at those places within you that are holding you back from what I consider like higher states of consciousness. And that would be, you know, unconditional love, inner joy, peace, oneness, wholeness, expansive, that type of higher consciousness or awareness energy. And what happens is we have all these the suffering or all the traumas, and that gets piled on top, and we kind of lose sight of our higher state of consciousness because it's already there. Yeah. It's not like we have to go find it somewhere or we have to die to experience it. You know, sages have and mystics have experienced it forever. So it's possible, but we get caught up in the daily grind and suffering. So I see this as when you're working on the quantum field, the thing that's different is that your records are actually rewritten. So when you start rewriting your records, you're healing it. Let's say, call it healing. I call it more releasing, but you're healing on multidimensionally. So you're healing in the records themselves. You're healing on all the bodies, the mental, physical, emotional bodies. You're healing in the DNA. So in the DNA structure within the body, the cellular memory. So any old traumas, and I'll give you an example of that in a minute, and along the genetic line, meaning your family line, because we inherit these same exact patterns that have run down the family line, you know, generation after generation. And what I found is that when people do this release work or this transformation, I like it more like transformation type of work, when they go in there and they get to the depth of their own traumas and issues, what happens is the records are rewritten. And then I'll ask them, what about that story that you just told me that you're triggered with, crying, mad, emotional about, with your mother who abused you? How do you feel about that story? And they'll go, well, it doesn't matter. It's not even there anymore. Like, I know the story happened, but it doesn't matter. I feel fine about it. I understand it more. So literally the records are being rewritten. And what that does for us is it gives an opening for your higher state of consciousness. Does that make sense? So like, because now I don't have the trauma from my mom. I don't have the anger, the sadness, the abuse. And it transforms and transmutes them on a deeper level. And now it's more available for these higher states of consciousness. And when you want, I'll talk about the entanglement of all of that.
Oh yeah, that'd be marvelous. But what's so good about that, when you're talking about forgetting, you know, you can forget, does that mean that like you've probably reincarnated for that same pattern many times, but going forward from clearing the Akashic Records, you wouldn't have to then go through that again. And it is, you know, old patterns and old tapes replaying that that your parents have done, you know. Or have you frozen? I think Melissa's frozen for a minute.
Sorry.
Oh, great, yes.
Am I back?
You are.
I'm so sorry. You know what? My internet's a little wonky
Oh,
today.
yeah, no.
It's like 106 degrees here.
Oh, I was going to say to you, because it's been so hot here, but I don't think it's that.
But there's no humidity, so it's not too bad.
Oh.
So I apologize if my internet goes
No,
wonky.
that's honestly, I'm glad you're back. That's all. Yeah, so it's like the patterns of our parents and our parents' parents and our parents. So once you clear it for yourself, you've cleared it for all the family, would you say?
Somewhat, because they still have their karma that they need to deal with. So it's not really cleared on their level unless they are open to allowing it to clear.
Yeah.
But yes, it can clear on their level. And also, it doesn't mean that you won't incarnate maybe with the same pattern, because maybe there's a different piece to it. But that's what I think, how I've shown this is because we are in the awakening. We are in this accelerated time period where it's time for us to really transcend these things quickly, and not to do it through as much time and space. So, you know, when we go through time and space, it's kind of like going through quicksand. It takes a long time to get, you know, your foot up, move that step forward and go forward. So we're in this accelerated time period. And that's why they're saying it's time for us to accelerate our ascension and to accelerate past our karma. And I don't see karma as, you know, I did a bad thing to you. Now we have to spend 3 lifetimes together making up for that karma. Karma are the patterns that we've come here to understand, to experience, and to transcend and transmute, because that's part of our experience here in 3D. We came here to experience what it means to feel something on a deeper level. When you hurt me, I feel it differently than I would in an energetic or a spirit realm, let's say. So we chose to experience this 3D environment. It's very different. And it's a pain in the butt. And then we go on the other side and we're like, oh, I could do that again. Then we come down and we're like, what was I thinking?
Exactly. Exactly. So what would you say, where you say in the book as well, it's illusion. This life is an illusion. And I've heard that many times. How would you explain that?
Well, really, I see it as an illusion that we create.
Yeah.
So we are part of the illusionary process, but it depends on our perspective. And what I love about that experience of perspective is, if you and I are hanging out, and somebody walks up to us and says something, you may say, oh my God, that guy was an a-hole all the way. And I may say, oh my God, I thought he was hysterical. What's the difference? He said the same thing, but we reacted differently and saw it differently from our own perspective. And that is because that perspective is all from our past lives and our current life, our traumas and our issues, right?
Yeah.
So I saw him as hysterical because he reminded me of my brother who cracks me up about everything. You saw him as an a-hole because he reminded you of your, you know, friend whose husband left, you know, he left her and you hate him, right? So it's because of that. Yeah. Does that make sense? So we are here. It's just a perspective, but it's an illusionary perspective because we are literally deciding what that's going to look like. We're turning the knobs to see what picture we want to see. And the more we come from our old issues, the more the world won't feel so great. But if we come from a place of saying, wow, this is pretty cool, like, or I see love in this situation,
Yeah.
then we're going to experience it differently. So it's an illusion because we're all part of it and we're all in it together. There's no one who's not in this with us.
That's brilliant. You know, Diane, she's the love queen. But yeah, so I'll just go back because it reminded me. And one big bit that you put, I don't know what page that was on, but it was really big, where you say one big thing to remember is you are not a victim. That's a really important, and it is a really important thing, isn't it? Because we can so easily become a victim of what our situation is.
Well, unfortunately, society creates us as victims. Most, I've worked with people all over the world, and what I have seen is that most people, almost everybody has some abuse and victim.
Yeah.
And that energy keeps us in the realm of disempowerment. And victim says, you're doing that to me, so how can I be empowered? But if you want to be in your life and want to experience the world from a place of empowerment, you can't do it through the lens of the victim. Now, look, everyone here could probably tell us a story of when they've been victimized. And it's a true story and it's real. You know, that person did this to me, or that situation happened to me. And I get that. That is tough. But the more power we give to that, the more we take away our true essence of our higher consciousness, of who our potential is, and our own ability to create the world that we want to create. Because if we're in victim mode, we're going to create more victimized experiences. Yeah. And it's not, so this is the thing, it triggers people sometimes because they're like, I'm not the victim, you know, like they want to fight back, and I get that. But the shadow of our victim is so true, unfortunately. Like, it sucks. And I will tell you right now, being the victim sucks. We all can agree on that. But when you empower yourself past that victim, you feel more at peace in your life. You feel more empowered, and things start happening for you in ways that you could have never imagined. And I do believe that we're ready to let go of that victim, and especially the spiritual leaders, or what I call the vibrational leaders. There are people, and probably every single person here or listening in the future, they are vibrational leaders. And you are a vibrational leader because you are holding a vibration for the rest of the world to resonate with, to expand their own consciousness. Not everyone is open to this experience. Not everyone is ready to listen to, oh my gosh, yeah, you know what? I am living in my victim. I want to empower myself through that. That means that you're a vibrational leader and you're holding a frequency for others to ascend after you. And ascension, by the way, if you're interested in ascension, I'm going to put this little caveat in. There is no end game in ascension. Like, there's no end result in ascension. Ascension is a process. So even when we die, we're still ascending in certain levels. So it's not, there's no end game to ascension. Ascension is about the process of moving forward and raising our vibration and being more in those higher states of consciousness, like beauty or bliss or oneness.
Yeah. So many say nature is like one of the best ways to probably experience that. Yeah. I'm going to just have a look at the comments because I know we've got a few now, Melissa. Oh no. Love the synchronicities. That's from Martine. Shamila, hello all. Martine, that's a lovely thing, looking for the blessing in everything. Yeah. Diane, Melissa is an amazing teacher and coach. Love her. Jackie, I told you she was beautiful, brilliant. I was going to say beautiful, but you are. Shamila says true. Wonderful. Oh, right. So we haven't missed any questions. If anyone wants to write a question in or happy to, Melissa's happy to answer as we go. So by all means, I don't know, put it in the comment box probably, or just say it if you want to unmute if there's an opportunity. I was going to say on the page 49 of your book, remember karma is just the emotional and mental junk that we store in our energy bodies. It is not a punishment. Karma is a way for us to understand that we do and say matters to our consciousness and to the consciousness of other sentient beings. Unwind the karma and allow yourself to embrace the higher vibrations. That is a lovely way of looking at karma, because so many still think that that's probably connected to punishment, I would say.
Yeah, and that comes from that energy of duality. You are a sinner, so you sinned, so you need to have retribution for your sins. And that is the way that karma has been seen. But what I was shown, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong, I'm just telling you what I have been shown, is that if we look at karma as punishment, then we'll never get out of the karmic wheel. Because there's always something that we have done wrong.
Yeah,
right? I
in
mean,
our mind that it's wrong, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we perceive, like, I said something to someone, I should have been a little bit nicer. Now I have to deal with that karma, like, oops, I accidentally stepped on a bug. Now I have to deal with that karma. And that seems like an arduous, absolutely difficult life experience over and over and over and over and over again. We'd never move past that. And that's what they're saying, is that karma is about our ascension through and beyond our desire to hurt, not desire, but it's beyond just what we've done, like a tick box. And you did this, and you did this, and you did this. It's not about the tick box. It's really about, what are you here? What have you experienced? And what can you do to enhance your ability to transcend your old stuff, your lifetimes, your old karma, your family patterns? Like, I just had somebody recently talk about, she said, Melissa, I just looked, so she took she's taken my certification course, and she said, I just looked at my family patterns, and oh my gosh, the family pattern of abuse is tremendous. And I didn't realize the depth of how it's moved down generation. And what she said was, now I feel empowered to transcend that abuse. Now I don't feel as much a victim to my old abuse. And that's what that's for us to do that.
Marvelous. Yeah, absolutely. I'll just see if that's a question that's come up. Oh, what's the book called, please? So it's A Radical Approach to the Akashic Records. I don't know if I'm showing or if Melissa's showing, but yeah, A Radical Approach to the Akashic Records, Master Your Life and Raise Your Vibration. And that's Melissa. How do you say your second name?
Feick.
Feick. Lovely. Yeah, I probably did say that wrong. I'm English.
Oh, good. No worries.
Oh, someone wrote that in. Oh, bless her, Diane did. What would you use as an example of the process in the book? Is awareness enough? Vivian's asking. Would you give... Oh, you got that? You understand that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So awareness is part of it, absolutely, because when you're aware, oh, that's what's happened in my life, you can do all sorts of different things to help yourself transcend that. And one of the ways is through a book. But what I help people do is to get into the records on the quantum field, because the lower records then, and I don't believe that there's anything wrong with any records, right? I was just shown this experience. They told me if you go lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, that's going to take longer to transcend things. That's why they asked us to go to the quantum field and do this. But when you go there, the process is you're going in there and you're recognizing where the energy is stuck in your own system. So it could be from an old trauma that you're holding on to in your life. It could be from some resentment that you have towards someone or something in your current life. And I don't really get too caught up in the stories of past lives, and I'll tell you why. A lot of people love the stories of past lives, and I get it. I mean, I've had spontaneous past life memories. I've had dreams where I've had past life memories. I've done regressions. I used to teach how to do regressions with people. So I certainly have been in that arena. But what they showed me is that they of course, my guides can be kind of jokingly said, do we really need another story? Like, just think about your lifetime. Do you have enough stories to make a book, 10 books? You don't need another story of another time somebody betrayed you. You don't need another story about sometime, somebody hurt you or abused you or this or that. Why that is because if time, right? So we now live in a place of time and space. We move through time and space in a very linear fashion. But they've kind of proven on the quantum realm, or they have proven, that time and space is now. So there is no past life. There is no future life. There's only now. So all the lives that you've experienced are happening all in the same moment, because it's only in our awareness of 2 years ago, 6 years from now, because we live in a linear time. One thing happens after another after another. Once we hit a higher frequency and we hit the ascension, that won't be our experience anymore. So we don't need to live lifetime after lifetime or try to heal. If you try to heal, let's say, for sake of argument, let's say most of you have had 300 to 1,500 lifetimes. Could you imagine dealing with all that karma one lifetime after another? Like, that sounds exhausting.
Oh my God. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so the process, I didn't answer a question completely. So the process is that you're going in there, you're looking at the bigger awareness, and you do want to be aware. Oh, wow, that comes from my trauma. Here's my emotions stuck to that trauma. And and then when you are fully immersed in it, the records they do the unwinding. And when I teach my certification course, I tell people, don't go in there and try to make things happen. Then you're living in time and space. We are past that. When you're in the quantum field, in the records will actually unwind the pattern. And it is amazing what happens when people experience that. And that unwinding is a very, it's pretty palpable to a lot of people. They can feel it and they can sense it. And then they're not so connected to their old story or the pattern itself. But now I do want to say one other thing. The situation is that you can't go, okay, clear all my abuse. And this is why. Because on the quantum field, there's something called quantum entanglement. And quantum entanglement means that things are a hot mess. So it's not like, oh, this thing is cleared, so all of this is cleared. It becomes a big ball of mess. Oh, I don't have a good example of that. But think about a lot of strings all strung together. Like, here we go. I got something. Like, that's your quantum. That's like just a piece of your abuse. Okay? So it's all entangled. But if you get to a couple pieces of that, it will untangle pretty quickly and pretty deeply. So it's not surface level healing. It's pretty deep. I'm really, I've always asked, and this is probably why my guides gave this to me. My question is always, what's faster, what's deeper? What's faster, what's deeper? How can we heal faster and deeper? How can we heal faster and deeper? And the reason that entanglement's so important is because if you're still holding on to your anger or your pain or your sadness toward someone in your life, you can't untangle the abuse that's entangled in that because you're still holding on to those pieces.
Right. God, that's so interesting. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm going to just say, I know we've got a couple of questions now.
Yeah.
God, donor USA. I totally agree. I don't do past life regression for this reason. I always say that my clients, we have enough crap in this life. We don't have to look at the past life.
I like that.
Vivian, so reading the book raises us into the quantum field. The records unwind karma. Yeah.
Yes.
Lovely. And Kate saying, I've heard about a new form of healing where you can go to the first incarnation of your life ever, and you can cut the very root of the pattern or thread. They all it. By cutting this, you heal it through your past lives instantly, but you have to go in and view the first life. Can't remember the name of the healing though, sorry. So the past life viewing would be useful if the technique's right. Sorry, it's long. Hello.
Hello.
I met you on Sunday.
Yeah, I know. Hello.
Lovely to see you again.
And you. Yeah, lovely to see you. Does it make sense, my question, or not?
Yeah, it does. I think that there are so many modalities, and that's exactly why I actually don't consider this a modality. When I teach it to people, I tell them do it, use it whatever way you want to use it and however you want to heal. I always look at anything that is a one-stop shop, meaning if you do this one thing, everything is washed clean. I would like to see the people 3 years later and to see what has changed in their life. I'd be interested in that, because if they're still holding anger toward their mom, then their karma hasn't cleared. And that's the way I always look at it. Remember, the big thing back in the day was, I'll clear all your karma. And I remember saying, oh, I had somebody, or no, I didn't say this, but somebody said to me, oh, all my karma was cleared through all my lifetimes. I was like, awesome. And then like 6 days later, or 6 months, whatever, she's like, oh, another one. She was going off. And I was like, well, wait a minute. Why would you still be so stuck? We came here to experience this world. If we could clear everything in one moment, then we'd no longer have an ego, which means that we would no longer have ego identity. And that's part of the higher consciousness and the shift into the ascension. So I find that once we clear a lot of things, and I'm not here to say, like, I don't know. I mean, I think that people are on their own path, and I'm never going to say that wouldn't work, because maybe it will. And I'll be the first one in line to do that. But also, we didn't come here to not experience things. And this ascension is so important because we're ready to move into that level. But we also want to make sure that we're not building a spiritual ego through that as well. So I wouldn't say if you've cleared everything, that's great. Also do your meditations, look at places where your ego is still involved with your life, just to make sure, just to clear, just to make sure that there's nothing hanging out somewhere. That's all I would say. And I would say that even in my own work. Like, I don't tell people like this, still need to meditate. You still need to look at your ego. You still go into the records, deal with your shadow. I don't say that this is a one-stop shop. I'll tell them that this is a process and you don't want to skip something that may help you raise your vibration. Does that make sense to you, Kate?
To me, does it to you, Kate?
Yeah, I was just saying, like, apparently there's millions and millions and millions of these threads, obviously. So, but you know, obviously working on them one at a time, it apparently, you know, breaks that pattern right through to where you are now. But I think you can only really work on a few at a time. You can't do them all at once.
Is it like that, would you say, Melissa, like the layers of an onion type thing?
Yes and no, because I've done the layers of the onion, like with belief work and things like that. I have to say for myself, and for a lot of my clients, what they have seen is that when they get to the bigger entanglements and they've done a lot of this inner work, they feel like they are more in touch with their higher conscious, who they truly are. They're more on purpose in their life. They feel like they have more of availability. I just did some sessions with someone recently, and then she's also taking my certification. And I won't swear, but she said, this SHI, works. I cannot believe. And she's a therapist. She's actually a classically trained therapist. She's done a lot of different healing modalities. And she said, I've never experienced anything so deep and so profound. But you kind of have to be ready for this work. So if you just want to surface clean, that's what you're going to get. But the entanglements, when you really get to the depth of the entanglements, things change. And I'll give you an example of my own life. So, 5 years ago, I was definitely more emotional, even though I had done a lot of work. I'm very empathic, so I feel everything, and I still do. I have to be very conscious of where, is it my energy? And I had a lot of financial situations, and I had, life crap, right?
Yeah.
And I've untangled a lot. I'm not saying that I am any sort of like I've ascended or anything like that. But what has changed in my life, let's say in the last 2 years, is I have left a relationship which was okay, but it was time for me to leave. I moved across the country. I manifested a house that I would have never expected. I'm living in a place that I love. I have friends and family. My relationships are healthier. I'm healthier, absolutely healthier. I'm happier. I live more in a place of like bliss a lot. So I really feel this exalted higher consciousness. I don't take myself too seriously. I feel like I don't care who I am as much, although a girl will do her hair, but like I'm not as attached to my identity. So, there are times like if, like even when you ask me, like, tell me about you, I hesitate because I'm like, well, who cares about me? Because it's not about me. Even me saying this, I'm like, how can I say this in a way to help people understand it? But it's not about me because I don't matter. I'm just a drop in the bucket, right? We're all little like drops of water. We're all the same consciousness. We all hang out in the same realm when we're over on the other side. We're all hanging out here. We're all the same. Nobody is special. But what I have that some people may not have experienced yet is that I live from a place of love, connection, and abundance that I didn't have previously because I'm not as attached to my ego's identity. And that's the easiest way to explain that. And I don't know if I answered your question.
Wow. Just saying then that you did all that in the last 5 years and you've got children, how did the 3D connection there, like, did they want to stay where they were? Was there a pull for you?
Yeah, well, so yeah, they are now very young adults. So I could move across the country. They did want to stay where they were there. My daughter's going to school in Boston and my son lives in Boston. So they're there. And I was from Maryland, so they weren't where I lived. So I'd plane ride no matter which way where I was. But also what you have to understand is that I am not afraid to do my work. And most of the people that come to me aren't afraid either. So they're ready for it. They're thirsty to become more of who they truly are. And I just think that, look, we're all trying to do the best we can.
Yeah.
And there's no right or wrong way to do anything. There's no right or wrong way to feel or to experience our world or to heal. This is just something that I have used and that I really want to help others to help them experience this, because it is worth it. On the other side of that, I wouldn't trade anything. And anything that I went through. So I see everything in our lives as catalysts, right? So I study the law of one. It interests me, the law of one work. So in the law of one, what they talk about is that we have these catalysts, and those are the triggers, right? So those are the things that help us see our shadow, see our ego, and go, wait a minute, do I have to react that way? Is that okay? So I am reacting that way. Okay, so I reacted that way. It's okay. Instead of beating myself up over it or my client being upset about it, I'm like, it's okay that you did that. That doesn't make or break who you are. Look at it and be honest with yourself around it, and try to transcend it as best you can, and love yourself through it, because we're all just doing the best we can. And I think that that's really the crux of everything.
Because like where you're saying when you're not special, we're not special, but in actual fact, people are, because we've gone through all that time of feeling unworthy and not good enough and not empowered, but we are good enough and we are powerful. So there's a bit of a contradiction there in a way, because you want to know that you're not unworthy, you are worthy, but on the other hand, if you're on your higher self level, you wouldn't even need to have that conversation in your mind.
And that's the difference.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I mean, believe me, if you wanted to see my resume of unworthiness, I have plenty there. But I'll give you an example, and I hear this a lot from my clients, and I kind of touched on it earlier. There was something that happened to me, when I was younger, and I only think about it when I'm giving an example. But when I think about that situation, I know it happened, but I have zero connection with it. And I can see it for what it is. It was just an experience. So I don't have any triggers to it. I'm not angry about it. I'm not hurt. I don't have my abuse energy around it. So that gives a clearer frequency around me. So if I'm working with a client or they're working on themselves, which I have many clients that do, their frequency starts to resonate at a higher energy because they're not holding on to old, lower vibrations. And that's the difference. And it is, we're all just evolving.
Absolutely.
We're all trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And why I say we're not special is because there is an ego. And then on the flip side is that stealthy spiritual ego. And the stealthy spiritual ego will say, well, Melissa, you're pretty smart. You have that book. You did that. I didn't do that book. I didn't write that book. I mean, yes, did I put time and space typing it out and talking to people, blah, blah, blah? Yes, I did do time and space experience, but I didn't write that book. I can get my name on it, which is kind of fun. But honestly, that came from my own higher consciousness. And that came from my guides. So the ego wants to take hold and take have kudos for that book.
Yeah.
But the ego, I don't care what the ego says, because technically the ego, and if you start looking at this, you see it for what it is. The ego is a 7-year-old child, high on sugar, running around, no place to go, doesn't know what it wants, says all sorts of things. It's just all over the place. But the stealthy spiritual ego will start trying to build you up, saying, well, I heard somebody recently and they were like, well, I'm just kind of above those other people. And I was like, oh, I understand that. And I knew what she was saying. She's trying to move from her feelings of unworthiness into feeling like, okay, now I'm this spiritual person and I've done a lot of work, and I honor that. But I also, for me, have seen it through all the years. I've been doing this, I've been playing this game for a long time. So I personally am very conscious of my own spiritual ego. So I'm always trying to work in the I am. And I actually have a podcast that I have, like a series of the Dark Night of the Soul. So it's all about ego dissolution into the I am presence. And that is, to me, is a really powerful way to help you recognize the ego and the spiritual ego.
Wonderful, thank you. Yeah, you've explained that marvelously. I'm just going to say, Melissa, would you agree that children being born now are without karma?
I believe that there may be some children. We can't blanket every single person, because there are still a lot of new souls who are coming in incarnating, or younger souls, let's call them, for lack of a better term, if we want to put them in buckets. Those children are still being born. Now, there are children, and I've seen them, who have less traumas and old energies, and they also need people who are vibrational leaders to hold the frequency as well, because they're not going to be able to reach a higher frequency, even if they're born into that, if there aren't other people like you and I. Okay. But I also have seen children with some pretty heavy karma. So I would not say every child, but yes, more so. Yes, because we're in the ascension. So now children can incarnate from, and they call them wanderers a lot of times. So some people consider themselves wanderers if they've incarnated here and they're at a higher frequency, like sages or saints or mystics. A lot of them have incarnated here and they already were at a higher frequency. Children too, because now the energy's raising. So higher vibrational beings can incarnate into this experience. At least that's the way I see it. Look, I don't believe that there is a right or wrong. And I really don't believe like that's my answer. But is that right? I don't know. You have to kind of file it away and decide for yourself.
That's it. We do discern for ourselves. But that is the sort of answer I think I would give. I don't know if you've heard of Tim Wilde. Have you?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So he says that all children since 2009 have come in with no karma.
Okay.
But whether
Gotcha.
that's, yeah.
Well, I have a niece, and let me tell you, that girl has some karma. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because that's a very blanket statement when you think of the billions of people in the world.
I mean, that is a very idealistic view, and maybe, and I'm not saying this is true, but possibly he is seeing something in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But I don't know how many children. I mean, I have a lot of, I know, I'm like a great aunt. So I have a lot of children in my life. I always have. And I have people who have other, so I love kids. And yeah, I've seen some that have some karma.
Yeah. And when you see your own children, I might not be the same for you, but if they're suffering in some way, not suffering, but you like things to be better for them, they're not seeing the bigger picture because they're young, and I wouldn't have seen the big picture at their age, but you would like them to see it a bit quicker than perhaps they are. There's not much really you can do because they're on their path.
Right. So this is the thing, that you can't heal someone else's karma.
Yeah.
So you can't go into the Akashic Records without their permission and start messing around, because they have to take personal responsibility for their own life. And it's through the personal responsibility and awareness that the healing happens. Okay. And I have really, I have a child who's pretty young, considering she's a young adult. And I really pulled back and I said, you are old enough to make your own choices, your own decisions. And as long as you're doing things in the right way, I will help you financially and emotionally and everything else. But I don't try to control her life or my other child's life, because I look at them as sovereign beings. And I have through most of their life. I was more controlling as a parent when they were very young, to keep them safe. But once they became in their teenage years, I remember my son one time came to me and he said, well, Mom, this and that's going on. And I said, well, do you want my opinion or my advice? Because I'm not going to tell you what to do. You're old enough to make your own choices. And he said, well, I want your opinion. And I said, oh, that I can give you.
Yeah.
But I try not to control anyone, because again, that's all human ego.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't be right. I'm not interested in controlling anyone's life. Thanks.
No, but I was like, when that announcement came last night on the telly, and I knew that was probably going to affect the wedding, and I knew and then I so wanted to go there. And my husband said, keep out of it. Absolutely. I just wanted to, if they wanted to talk, but no, I kept away. I was really good. So everyone is special. We're all from the same source. Yes. Yeah. And Kate saying, how do you deal with how do you deal with and clear your shadow in the Akashic Records? Is there the most effective technique, please?
Yeah, so I would say the most effective way is to go in the Akashic Records on the quantum fields and look at all the entanglements around your shadow. So like the shadow of the victim, the entanglements of all the traumas that you've had, all the emotions that are still stuck there, the physical, the cells remember any traumas. And remember, traumas, mental, physical, emotional, sexual, spiritual. And I also try to explain to people, trauma is not, I beat the heck out of you. Trauma means that it's any time the body felt unsafe. So trauma can be like, the story I tell is, a little boy's in the back of the car hanging out with the parents. It's 4 years old. They stop the car. He's just like playing in the little dirt there. And there are these two older people. He doesn't know who they are. He's just doing his thing. They take his little bags out of the trunk, and the parents go, bye, love you. Bye, little son. We're going away for a week. You're going to stay with your grandparents. And then the moment, though, they pull away, the child feels unsafe. He doesn't know these people. He's not sure what's going. He feels abandoned. He feels unsafe. He feels betrayed. And these emotions because he's so young and he can't process them. So now he's 30 years old, wondering why he can't have a relationship over 6 months. And there's his trauma, but he's like, but my parents were good people. They gave me, my grandparents, we had a great time. And I went there every summer after that. You know what I mean? But what he doesn't know is that trauma got stuck in the body.
Yes, makes perfect sense.
I'm sorry, Jackie. I also want to say, of course, we're all special, but what I meant was we're not ego special. We're higher consciousness special. Yeah. But ego special means that, when the ego thinks special, it means above and below.
Yes.
That's why I differentiate. But I agree. Yes, we're all special in our higher self, higher consciousness. I just want to make sure people understood that.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you say that by staying present, aware, conscious, we transcend karma?
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what is the difference between trauma and shadow?
Oof. Not much.
No. Cool.
Because we wouldn't have a shadow if we didn't have our stuff.
Yeah, very connected. So yes. I'll just say some of the things that I've got listed here, because so survival, we went from survival to heart to love. So that was in your book. I really loved that. So we went from survival mode to the heart, being more in the heart all the time, to being love. Yeah, I love that. That was a thing I just wanted to say. Embrace more of your true potential. Ego focus to oneness focus. That was a lovely part that you said in the book as well. Ego focus to oneness focus. So, and you've just said you love the oneness. You're looking at that. Manifesting is human. Creating is divine. I love that.
Wow, I said all that? Okay, awesome. I didn't say.
Well, I've heard that before, that manifesting, because people say, oh, I'll manifest this or I'll manifest that. That is a human thing to think that, whereas creating is it from divinity, I would imagine, yeah. I said about illusion, that we're not a victim, that we can recreate your past and we recreate your future. Again, we've covered that, actually. You've covered that, yeah. And honestly, when I was reading, just sat there with the MOT today, waiting for the MOT to be done on the van. And these lovely guys, such a lovely garage, and they always let me sit in the reception and just wait the hour while they do that. And they're just the nicest. And I was reading that bit where you say love stirs inside your heart, and the truth of, because I've gone to a garage that I know are really lovely people, and and I heard him say, no, it wasn't that, the light wasn't on when it came in, but it is now, so we don't have to charge for that. I just know they're the real authentic truth of where I went. So it was all resonating so much, just like having that done. And the last thing I wanted to just ask you about is the halls of a mentee. Is that something you've looked at, Melissa?
What is that?
The halls of a mentee.
I don't know what that is.
Akashic Records, the next step up. So just quickly, Tim Wilde, when he I spoke with Andrew Hobbs the other day. He's a spiritual coach, lovely, lovely man. And when Tim Wilde went years ago, Polaris AB took him for a reading with Andrew Hobbs. And Andrew said to him, your next step is getting into the halls of a mentee, but you've got to raise your vibration even higher to get there. And that was he needed to do that then. He knew that was his next step. And then he went into the halls of a mentee.
Is that considered the Emerald Tablet?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, yeah. I know what you're talking about. See, I'd have to see the word. Yes.
Um,
It's
yeah.
connected to the emerald tablet.
So is that something you sort of know about?
I wouldn't say that I am expert. I know a lot about the emerald tablet, but I'm not 100% sure if we're speaking, tomato, tomato, are we speaking the same language?
Yeah.
Look, I think that we live in a vast experience, and I don't even want to say universe. Everything is so multi-dimensional, and I have traveled a lot multi-dimensionally, and one thing I feel or sense is, and all the experiences I've had, is that there's no limitation. And there's so many different things, and you may call it the Hall of the Mente, and I may call it the who's he what's it of the 16th realm. So when we try to bring it into human experience, we try to label it and put it into awareness, and that's all perfect. But we might be speaking the same exact language.
Absolutely, yeah. Oh, that was just it was an interesting conversation about this Halls of Mente, and he did do an evening on it about once he could get in there. I don't really know enough about that, so I just wondered if it was something but it's probably covered, but like you say, in a different, we're called a mother or a daughter but actually we are a being of oneness.
Right. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, if I understand that, that's some work from the emerald tablet that was channeled by I think its name is DOAL or something like that. I'm really bad. I have to see the words sometimes. I don't
No, that's fine. Honestly, just thought I'd ask that. Thank you so much, Melissa. Has anyone got any other questions? I don't think there's any. I don't think I've missed.
I think there was a couple questions here.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think somebody asked, would you agree that, oh, no, you already answered that. I don't know. I haven't been paying close attention.
Oh, heard of cord uprooting the theta healing? Shamila?
I've heard of theta healing. Yes. I don't know what the cord uprooting is.
Oh, and Vivian saying, so once you start unwinding quantum entanglement through your book, how does it progress? What type of work is required?
Mostly awareness and being, asking the records what else is in there and what else am I holding on to, and how can I be, let go of my past, basically.
Lovely. Has anyone else got, by all means unmute if anyone wants to unmute. I'd love to hear from Diane. Yeah, are we going to? Hello.
Hello, honey. And I'm, just thrilled to be able to share my bestie with you, Jackie, and all your wonderful folks. I told you she was great.
Wonderful.
I mean, I told you she was great. And I did want to mention that, before we became friends, she was my teacher, my coach. And even with the book, there is such a beautiful process. It's so easy to understand. And I think this is just a beautiful example of how we have so many opportunities to access love, peace, joy from a variety of ways. And this is Melissa's flavor. And it's a freaking awesome flavor.
It absolutely is, yeah. Oh my goodness. If you go, I'll just say to people, if you go to my page, Inspirations PLG on Facebook, and then the videos on a drop down menu, you'll find the talk that I did with Diane, probably a few months ago now, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was over the summer.
That's still on there, yeah. And that was really pretty awesome. It is something that you can do on your own, reading the book, process on your own, in your own time. Oh, Norma's saying, is it?
Yeah, Norma, I hear from people all the time, and they're like, I read your book and I can't believe what I've cleared. So yeah.
I mean, I've loved it. I've loved reading it. I'm got a bit more, about a quarter of it to go, but I'm taking it more slowly just because I want to understand it more. Yeah. So I'm loving it. Absolutely loving it.
Thank you. That's so sweet.
Thank you. Great. I'm getting the book. Norma. Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, thank you so much, Melissa. It's been a joy to meet you, honestly.
Thank you, Jackie. This is great. And thanks, Diane, for being so sweet. Off topic a bit, I really love the sacred geometry artwork behind you. Yeah. So this is, his name is Andre. It's Endre. And I think it's under, I can't remember if I got it. It's some sort of art URL that I found somewhere. I wish I should remember because people always ask me about it, but I've had them for quite a few years. This is my, yeah, because I'm at the Ascension and I do a lot of light code work. So that's part of that. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you for asking.
Because there's sacred geometry can actually give you strength, can't it? I've had one of those tests, you know, where you push the arm down and it's weak, and then you look at a sacred geometry shape and you get strength. It's quite incredible.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's good to know, Jackie. I love that.
Yeah, honestly. Well, and that was the point of trying this, and it absolutely worked for everyone there. Thank you so much. Lovely evening. Kinesiology. Yes, it is, Norma. It's really, and another thing that someone said was, they said something about my solar plexus and my arm went right down really easily. And then I had a yellow crystal just to my solar plexus, and the strength in my arm just by holding just incredible, isn't it? All these things.
It's amazing.
But anyway, I've loved tonight. Thank you so much. And I'm sure we'll be in touch again, Melissa.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Jackie, and everyone who came here today.
Yeah, thank you to everyone.
This is a pleasure. You guys are awesome.
Bless you. Thank you, everyone. I'll stop.
Have a great day.
Now. Thank you. You have a great day. Yeah, it's a bit later for us.
It's late for you. Have a good evening.
Bless you. Thanks. Bye, Diane.
Thank you. Bye.